Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we have a mission to wake the world up to what is possible around here. And here today to help me with that mission is Dan Gorbunow. Did I get it right? Gorbunow. Okay, good. I've been practicing, you guys. I've been practicing saying the names. Dan is one of the authors of our recent best-selling book, Find Your Voice, Save Your Life 4, Transcendent Men, Real Stories. He's also the award-winning author of the upcoming book, The 7 Secrets of Men's Spirituality. Dan is an integral healer and soul care coach, offering holistic wellness and guidance to people seeking self-care mastery. So comparative religion and mythology, indigenous ceremonies and ways of life, martial arts and energy practices have shaped Dan's life and his mission. Dan is also the founder of the Seven Feathers Society, a nonprofit offering spirit-based recovery programs to addicts in recovery. And lead author of Find Your Voice, Dianna Leeder and I have partnered with Dan to give back to the Seven Feathers Society. So every purchase of that book is helping Dan out and is helping Dan help other people, which Dan, welcome. I'm so excited to be able to partner with you in this way. And we want to hear everything about Seven Feathers and like, how did it get started? Tell us a little bit about you.
Wow. I'm just, overjoyed in this collaboration. As I've said, it's one thing to follow your dreams and get yourself published, and such a great supportive team working in a group. It's been, just so fantastic getting to know everybody, and then this offer to support the nonprofit. I couldn't ask for a better outcome, truly. And I love how it works together. Because the work that we're doing in the nonprofit is, really reflected, I think, in some of the themes and energies and healing around, specifically around men's health and well-being, but for everybody, really, because so many people are affected by each other, right? I mean, a lot of the guys that I work with in recovery, this is like substance use, chemical dependency treatment. Nowadays there's a larger sort of way of identifying this part of the industry or healing, and it's dual recovery, meaning there's co-occurring things going on. There's a mental health component and there's a chemical dependency component. So I'm in the niche of dual recovery treatment, mostly for men. At the state hospital where I also work and as a chaplain, there's all genders are also in that program, but largely working with men. So I got here because, well, really my own process. I think there's an understanding that we go through our stuff and we have to work through the obstacles, the challenges, the hard times. And as a result of that, kind of lifting those kind of weights in life, we gain new muscles and new skills. And for me, as for a lot of people, then we transform that work, that effort into service, into giveaway. And yeah, so how did this begin? I have to look back. It's a long track now, but it really began in the shadows of my own difficulty. What I found is that as I made the decision to work through my own stuff, and this is in the chapter 4, so we're at the origin point of my aha into life, right? My pivotal moment where all the weight of what wasn't working in addiction and criminality, and then it turns into, what am I going to do from here, and how am I going to direct my life? So from that moment on, I've been developing for myself. How do I keep myself healthy? How do I, crawl, walk, run out of the difficulties I got myself into? And then even before I left my own treatment process, found that, some of the other guys were benefiting from what I was doing. I was sharing my insights, and that was really where it began. It was just in the eyes of my peers, seeing the light of consciousness start to awaken, and then feeling like, yeah, I can do this. And it's so important. It just gave me a lot of fuel to keep going. And I share that with guys in recovery too. It's like, when you learn what you need to do to take better care of yourself and do that, then you are granted, special powers that you can put to good use for others. So I went from treatment and changes in my life. I encountered some really powerful men's organizations locally in Minnesota. The first is the Twin Cities Men's Center. I can't say enough good things about them. My understanding of the whole men's community and men's, men's based treatment or men's based programming, there was a lot more of it at one time. Starting in the 80s and 90s, there were maybe a dozen or more men's centers or men's resource centers around the country. Sadly, those have dropped off over time. And now I think the Twin Cities Men's Center is maybe one of the only ones remaining. And the idea is to provide resources, support, legal and spiritual and emotional programs specifically for men, because men have their own brand of dysfunction and their own brand of styles of support that work better for them. And so the Twin Cities Men's Center opened my eyes up to some of the other things that are available. Minnesota Men's Conference, which has been the pioneering mythopoetic institution out of Minnesota, founded by Robert Bly in the 80s. And Robert Bly is a pretty well-known Minnesota poet and visionary for social change, and really helped create the mode of how men can heal in a combination of ritual space, mythopoetic storytelling, and ecstatic experience, and then just really solid heart-to-heart sharing in a way that men just hadn't had access to. And he's addressing the needs of post-Vietnam and a lot of culture in crisis and men's community in crisis. So, and then out of that comes Mankind Project. Mankind Project was formed by, I think, early students of Bly, and they created a men's initiation process, picking up the bones and remains of initiation left over in story and myth and tradition, and created, I call like emotional boot camp experience, where you really get to go and take a deep dive into your inner life and get that support. And there's often breakthrough moments in that. So inspired by all these things I encountered as I emerged out of my cave of difficulty and looking into the broad world around me, like, well, where's community and what can I do? And I found these organizations, and they really helped inspire me to think of what's possible. And with that, I started volunteering at the state mental health hospital. I was called into service to support Native American prayer services. I happen to have a background in indigenous ceremony and know a lot of the teachings and have something to share. And I was co-piloting that monthly prayer service with several other Native American men or people who had some knowledge about it. They all dropped off, and I continued. And then I just was going every month. And then what I found, Laura, is that it wasn't just Native American people that were drawn to ceremony. People from all walks of life, all spiritual traditions and faiths and peoples. In Minnesota, we have a big Hmong population and Laotian population. There's also a big East African, Somali population. And people from all these walks of life were just drawn to the drum and the sage and the storytelling that I was doing as part of the prayer service. And it just really just mushroomed down just very powerfully. All of a sudden, it was like just a huge thing happening in the state hospital. And then out of that came a conversation. Hey, do you have any more that you could offer for the chemical dependency aspect? And I said, yeah, I've been working on stuff for myself, and I have something to share. And that's really the origin of the Seven Feathers program, was working weekly at the mental state health hospital, working with people from all kinds of backgrounds and needs. It very quickly turned from a Native American program into a community-based program. And that gave me permission to venture into all other kinds of tradition esoteric traditions, Judeo-Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist. I have a comparative religious background, and I found that as I started to introduce other concepts and themes and finding those junctions, that people really loved it because, obviously people come in with their own faiths. I could sometimes spot, well, yeah, here's a man who's going through treatment who has a background in Islam, and I can speak to that, and then we can all learn from that. And so it's just really amazing what happened is that before long, I found that I was enjoying a real sweet spot of being able to share whatever I was inspired that day or whatever information was coming through. And that program just continued to grow. At some point, about 10 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I decided to take that outside of the state hospital. And then I started going out into the field in other men's residential treatment centers. And there's a big one in the urban sprawl of St. Paul called Twin Town. And that's really where the rubber hits the road in the urban environment. There's a lot of hardcore addicts and people who are just coming out of homelessness or prison or just whatever, a whole mix of people. And I found a way to communicate these ideas that I've been learning, and it's just been really growing ever since. Then some point about 4 years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I really started thinking about creating a nonprofit that would bring more of the ideas behind my presentations into a platform where I could offer more programming. As showing up for an hour or two at a treatment center, I can only do so much. I don't have a sacred fire there. We're not doing purification ceremonies there. Can't provide holistic services in that environment very easily. It's mostly group talk and process. So wanting then to patch together an ideal program with all the different skill sets I've learned over time, ceremony and holistic services, and even the idea of having, longer retreats where you can have a full immersion in the healing environment. And I started asking the men, would you be interested in such a thing like that? And they're like, yeah, sign me up. There wasn't anything yet. And a lot of these guys had never experienced it. There's the social justice issue here too, is that, a lot of my red brothers and brown brothers and African-American brothers, they just haven't had access to the kind of things that I had experienced. Taking a men's retreat, like I was talking about, they just not in their cultural view. And so wanting to also create a program that addresses that imbalance. That's really how Seven Feathers came about, is providing holistic services, spirit-based recovery, and a series of programs that could address that, either local, having fires and gatherings where we create that kind of vibe, or the longer retreat where we can then offer the full pack of services. And that's what we're doing right now.
Amazing and awesome. You mentioned you had the moment early on where you thought, all right, I have something to share. You saw the light of consciousness, illuminating in your fellow men there. And I want to tie that into, then you've published a chapter in this beautiful book. And I want to ask you about the book, the whole book that you're working on. How was it for you to go from that kind of sharing to sharing your story in the book? Tell me a little bit about how that went down for you.
Sure. Well, when I first was invited to be a part of the book, I really gathered that this was an opportunity to dig deeper and not just talk about what we know, but how did we get to what we know? And that's very deeply personal. That's the story, that's the inner narrative of the, the seed process. I think that's so interesting. I like seeing things in formation. I like seeing the architecture behind things. And so I just really wanted to do that for myself and also to kind of showcase, this is how it can work. On one hand, I've had a lot of experience already telling the story. It's one of the ways I help to connect to the men I'm working with by letting them know, hey, I've been there, man. I've been there in the trenches with you. I know what it's like to go through what you're going through. And so I have to pull out of my own, story, then open up this gate here that likes to clamp down and keep everything stuffed down here. And there's fear and there's dread, there's shame, there's failure, there's all this stuff that are held inside. And a lot of the guys in treatment, they need to open this up. This isn't a comfortable zone to be in. So I really thought, or have thought that, if I do that and dive in, then that's going to help. And it's very effective. It's also a way to show that I'm not here to say I got all the answers, right? I screw up at least as good as anyone else. So in one hand, like I said, it's something I'm used to, but it's another thing to go from, a population or a community of guys where we're sharing that and we're in that together, to like broadcasting it to the whole world. That's terrifying.
Yes. A little, just a little bit, right?
Oh my God, it is. It's like, wow, I can't think of anything more vulnerable than opening up your story and your wound to the world to witness and see. And yet I thought of it as like a graduation thesis, right? Like what I'm really writing is my graduation thesis. This is me claiming, my medicine out of the shadow. And it's one thing, like I said, to share it where we all get it in a small container, but a larger container is, yes, it's really big. It's given me a lot of courage, a sense of accomplishment to do that. And just like I'm done, I'm good. It's kind of, that's what it feels like. I no longer have to hold that as something that it's only safe to share in certain zones. I now feel completely empowered to just like, I'm just standing on that, like this is what it takes to heal. And ultimately, I want others to be encouraged. And there's all those other good souls out there, whether a man reads the book or someone who knows a man who needs that energy, or someone who needs to better understand a man in their life, a son, brother, father, spouse, whoever. So that, in that sense, through a love offering is my intention in writing that. Is like, I want to go as deep as I can so that it resonates at that heart level with people who are also facing this kind of difficulty, and then how to get through that, and what you might gain as a result of going through that, and share that. Especially the theme of my chapters around healing the father archetype, right? And that energy. So many men I know, people, I mean, not just men, all genders. There's a great lack of healthy father energy in our society. And it's the silent epidemic. I talk about this word epidemic, like epa means of or from, demos, the people. It's an illness of or from the people. And fatherlessness, or the relative absence or insufficiency of healthy father, is a social epidemic. The cost to our society is probably incalculable. You could put a number on it of many billions, a year. I mean, one way to think about it is 70% of the men in prison, who make up, 80% of the population in prison. The US is one of the most incarcerated nations in the world. 70% of those men have dad issues, either absent or abusive dad. Wow, that's not a coincidence. That's a glaring fact that needs to be addressed. Higher rates of suicide in men, starting as early as elementary school, going into college 6 times higher, in total 16 times higher in the course of his life. The statistics tell us the story. There's less men going into college and less men completing college. There's higher rates of suicide, depression, all this stuff, right? So men are struggling, and it's not really, it's not a visible thing going on. Like the way that men's issues show up is either people are unhappy with men for different reasons. They call out a patriarchy, or they're shocked by violence that men can produce, and things like that, without understanding what's really going on underneath these flashpoints that are really on the surface. As hard as those things are, it points to something much larger and troubling. and that is this lack of healthy father energy. So in writing that chapter, I'm just, slinging an arrow and trying to lodge it right into the heart of the beast. This is where we need to be looking at and doing some work. I worked with Dr. Warren Farrell. Some people know who he is, a pretty well-known author and advocate for men's rights issues and stuff, and was part of a coalition to create a White House Council on Boys and Men. And difficult political situation this country's been in the past few years. It's been hard to manifest that, but there's a lot of people in society working on this issue, and it's great to be part of that team. I'm just kind of doing my own share, my own vantage point to help men and to help people just have a different understanding about what's going on and how we can collaborate together.
You're definitely doing your share. Oh my God, so many things in there that I want to pull apart, but I'm going to go back to the dad energy. I just want to say thank you for your chapter, because as a woman, it helped me. So this book is definitely not only for our male readers, it's going to help women and all people really understand at a deeper level. It did for me. So again, thank you for that. And it kind of gets me to the next thing that I want to ask you about, because our fathers, their fathers, what does it even mean to you to be a transcendent man?
Hmm. I find that every time I get asked that, the answer is a little different.
Yeah.
I did answer recently one that I like, and this is a paraphrasing from a quote by William Blake, but I believe that to be a transcendent man is one who, or to be transcendent is to take full responsibility for one's life, or I could say full responsibility for one's reality. And that is a little different answer than this idea of maybe transcendent as in a spiritual quality of just simply rising above, or the concept of enlightenment. And I think, practically speaking, we all have, I have work to do to continue to be more conscious, more responsible, more in charge of the program that's operating my life, and accountable for what I'm producing and how I affect others, my impact on others. And it's hard to acknowledge sometimes the places where I'm having a negative impact on others, but I can't see it, right? And that's shadow. And to at least have a position in life where you're ready to clean that up and willingness to go there doesn't mean I catch it 10 times out of 10. I might catch it 6 or 7 times out of 10, but I'm trying. I'm aware that my unconscious activity may be producing results that's not in alignment with who I am. And the ability to do that and to be able to shift and interrupt your pattern, I believe makes one a transcendent person, that we're striving to overcome our own innate tendencies to screw things up by not paying attention to what we're doing. Something like that.
I like it. I like that. I like the taking responsibility. Really, for me, it's taking responsibility for a discipline of daily awareness. And when you're paying attention like that, you can, with awareness comes a choice, and we can make a lot of really healthier choices. I wrote down something you said a few minutes ago. This was me claiming my medicine out of the shadow, and I loved that, because that takes some warrior awareness. You like the word warrior too. I know you use it on your places like I do.
Yes.
Because I think it takes a warrior to be in that discipline of awareness. I think both of us also have a martial arts background,
Yes.
if I'm remembering correctly. And,
Yeah.
when you live by those tenets, oh, hey there. Speaking of transcendent dads.
I asked her to stay downstairs, but she decided not to. This is Shaya.
Hi, Shaya. She wanted to be in the interview today. That's
Guess so.
cool. Well, so Transcendent Men, the male collaborative book that we all mail, first ever Brave Healer Productions book that was an all male author cast, the men's work in general. Why is that important?
Sure. Could I ask you to take Shaya downstairs? Thank you, guys. I love you. Okay. All right, I'll be right down. Okay, almost done.
I want to go and say good morning to Lisa. Is that okay?
Yes.
Good
All right.
morning.
If I go by myself,
Okay. Okay.
If
No, you cannot go by yourself.
then maybe Dad could come with me.
If Jack goes with you, then you guys can go.
Can we go by ourselves?
No. Well, yes, but you both have to go. Okay. I got to be on the call here, sweetie.
Will you be there in a minute?
I will.
Will you be downstairs in a minute?
So this is father. Yes, this is fatherhood, right? It's like,
It is definitely
why isn't-
fatherhood.
so I think that answers the question right there. Is like so that I can be more present in their life.
Yes.
That's so many men I work with, they're so, I don't know how to say it, but they're so burdened with the productions of their unconscious activity, right? They're like stuffed to the max with unresolved stuff. And it hogs their bandwidth for love. It hogs their bandwidth for receiving.
It's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and they're caught in this self-defeat cycle where no matter where they try to move, they're getting pinched or they're feeling pressure, and they kind of start to shut down. And you know, it's sad when you realize that, well, what it takes is to be more awake and to start picking apart the things that are hitting you from the inside. So much of programming is externally based. It's on the biopsychosocial structures around the guy, like housing, correct medications, obviously not destroying himself through drugs and alcohol, having better peers and environments and support systems and all that stuff. And it's all this stuff around him. But increasingly, the stuff that's inside of him, is calling for attention. And even in that, a lot of it is focused on getting your thinking right, getting your behavior right. Okay, fine. That approach will help you in getting the skills you need to not destroy yourself and not make things worse and to start approaching life again. Still leaving off the table, though, the deepest dimension. What's the core hurt? What's the core story? Underneath all that is a deeper accountability that I suggest in the work, in the Seven Feathers program, and in the coaching programs I do, and in the books I'm writing. Underneath all that debris that we got to get through, that needs more airtime, is brilliance, is love, is a great capacity to just be amazing. Using a lower term here as at how to access your inner badassery to fulfill your life,
Yeah.
and that's divine. That's powerful stuff. And I think that energy gets so twisted that it turns into shadow and shame and hurt and even violence. All that stuff that horrifies or shocks us is just twisted love. It's twisted spirit. So why I do this is to try to help men, sort that out so they get access to that.
Yeah, I love listening to talk about this really, really important subject. And of course, no matter how you are helping yourself, you're helping the world. So that's why I think this is big potato stuff to me. We have had all male author casts, we have had all female, we have had co-ed, we have had, I want all the voices, I suppose, is my point, because there's somebody out there that needs to hear it in the way that one person said it, right? And that's how their light bulb goes off. But when you're feeding yourself to the point where the love is the thing coming through, oh my goodness. I mean, of course you help yourself, but you help everyone in your inner circle and your outer circle at that point.
Right. And it's not easy to fix. Thank you. I mean, it's difficult. Like, I'll give you an example. Okay, yesterday I was at Twin Town, and a guy was sharing his story, and he clearly needed to speak, and he was talking about his stuff. And so I just asked him, what's going on in there. And here's something he said, which I hear a lot actually, is he stayed away from his children and his family because he didn't want them to see that addict side of him. In his mind, that was the best thing he could offer, was distance. Because when he's on his dope, he's not doing well. He's ashamed of that part of him. He doesn't want to show that to them. And that mask he puts on is, in a strange way, a love offering to his children to stay away from them in his mind. I challenged him a bit on that. Said, this is this is still some of that addict talking behavior that you're making excuse, but still, on some level, when he's in that, that's his truth. And it's the same could be said for Native Americans who are, drinking cough formula under a bridge.
Hmm.
They're being a warrior in that moment. And you're like, because I've asked them, what's going on with this, and then get down to it. They're expressing an autonomy there because they're not working for the man in a system that doesn't honor them. And it's a strange thing to experience how when someone is deep in shadow, what love means. And it's a journey to get out of that and to find a ground where love is a healthy force and not merely a co-author of destruction. It's very profound what it takes to guide soul, towards a healthier state. And I'm always surprised, and my own heart just opens up every time I work with people. So it's also there's a selfishness here that I get to experience more when others experience more.
Definitely. It's a two-way movement of energy that heals us as we give. It's a beautiful thing, actually. So, all right, I want to give you a chance to tell everyone about what you have going on right now. What are the
Okay.
programs? What are the offerings? Tell us everything.
Okay. Well, I'm really, again, just grateful and pleased that the launch of this book and the sales of this book initially are all going to support my program and continue to inspire all of us, to further our goals and service projects. This is just a lot of fuel for me to keep going. So that's really helpful. The first thing that's coming up, that is a collaboration between my coaching program and the nonprofit Seven Feathers, is we're having a men's spiritual retreat that's coming up here in just a few weeks, September 9th, 10th, 11th. It's one of the core offerings from the society. It's also something that I love doing, is getting guys together and around a spiritual theme and doing some work. It's Friday night to Sunday afternoon, and picked a really beautiful spot in Somerset, Wisconsin. Martell's Landing is a historical zone between, and here in Minnesota, there was a 150-year war between the Dakota and the Anishinaabe Ojibwe, and right along the St. Croix was the battle line. So this particular spot is both a burial mound area because it's on the banks of the river, and it's also where there's historical battles. And Martell's Landing was one of the first settlements as a trading post on this river. And right on that piece of land, there have been dozens, probably hundreds of ceremonies done on this land by the woman who stewards that land. And high level, ayahuasca ceremonies and Yuipi and, even sun dances and other things have happened there. So it's pretty powerful to be on this ground for a retreat. And it's just putting together some of the best of things I love to do. Ceremony and good food is provided from the things that grow on the land. And we already have about 7, 8 guys signed up right now, including some people we know. I won't name names, but so we have guys who are showing up from different parts of the country and the community. That's coming. That's really exciting. This is the second time I've done this. We did a smaller version of this last year to kind of get it going. This is the first full-on retreat that we've done with this new model. So I'm really excited. I've got massage therapists coming in the morning to help, a guy who's doing martial arts stretching and practices for the guys in the morning. Also, the guy who does sound healing with gongs and Tibetan singing bowls. He's a master, vibration and sound guy, and he's an engineer. He's going to be giving us a concert as part of this. So it's really neat to start to pull together all this great talent and watch what happens. So I'm excited about that. In addition, I have an ongoing monthly men's gathering called Odyssey, and we do storytelling. One of the storytellers from the Minnesota Men's Conference, Walton Stanley, is part of that. He's also part of the board of Seven Feathers. So he's coming in and he offers just a really fun tale, either from the Grimm brothers or, traditional indigenous story. And then we tell the story and then we dive into the themes of our life. And then that's the fellowship that we create. And then we usually end with some nosh and maybe a little drumming, something fun to do, some movement. And that's been going for a while, and that's continues to meet every month. And then it's planning for the next retreats. I'm only like looking as far ahead as the next project right now, because if I try to do too much, I start to drop plates that are spinning. But looking forward, we're going to have, I'd like to do a winter retreat. I think there's something really neat about that. And then maybe want to get in spring. So these are just the things that are coming up that I'm working on.
Fantastic offerings. All right, you guys, you may have heard something today that is just piquing your curiosity. Maybe you're getting a little goosebump about something we've talked about. So
I would be amiss if I didn't offer this too. The other thing that's happening right now in real time, Laura, is I've promised your transformation school a course. So I should mention that too. Healing the Father Archetype, which is the name of the chapter that I wrote, is also course material. And I'm editing the film for that now and getting into like about 10, 12 segments that are about 10, 12 minutes long each. So it's little bite-sized pieces to walk you through a process. And I'm also teaching a class right now called the 7 Dimensions of Spirituality. It's an online course. And each of those weeks is one of the chapters of the new book that's coming out. So I'm actually exploring the material as I'm completing the book to make sure that the material and the offering and the course offering and the workshop is aligned. So that's just something that's happening right now.
beautiful. All right, so they can find everything at sevenfeathersociety.org. Any other site that they should check out?
Excuse me. That's really it.
Yeah, okay, awesome.
So Seven Feathers Society and my coaching course and coaching business, www.warriorbox.com.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to have you guys all hooked up down below in the show notes and come explore, check out these offerings that Dan has talked about today. Definitely grab your copy of Find Your Voice, Save Your Life 4, Transcendent Men, Real Stories. You can read Dan's chapter and all of the other profound, powerful chapters from this stellar author cast that we put together, and those purchases through our launch time period, they help the Seven Feathers Society. So please grab your copy today, you guys. Dan, thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being here today to share it with everyone.
Thank you, Laura. It's been an inspiring journey, and I'm looking forward to the next collaboration.
All right, y'all. Lastly, today, I just want everyone to remember your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it's time to be brave. See you next time, everyone. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.